Well, today is the day a massive group of international doctors and medical experts have come together and rolled out a new advertisement called Never Again. The ad specifically asks the question, why are so many doctors having second thoughts about COVID? It's a great question. Watch this clip from this powerful ad.
My name is Dr. Elizabeth LaFay, and I'm a doctor of osteopathy.
My name is Stephen Clayman. I'm a doctor of chiropractic.
Hi, my name is Timothy Stonecipher, and I'm an osteopathic family physician.
My name is Molly Rutherford, and I'm a family doctor who also treats addiction.
My name is Michael Turner, and I'm a doctor of physical medicine and rehabilitation.
My name is Amy Offit, and I'm a doctor of integrative medicine.
It's time to talk about what has happened to us all. We are doctors, saying what tens of thousands of silenced medical professionals from all over the world have not been able to say.
I think seeing the censorship of these wonderful, super smart doctors, that was scary. To start censoring science, that's a slippery slope. In general, I think we've always trusted the CDC and the FDA, but with this pandemic, it just became questionable to me.
A sad realization progressively that they don't have our best interests in mind. They're not doing their job. They're not acting in the public's well-being. They're captured, they're paid off, they're corrupt.
Well, the group that put that together is called the Global Health Project. One of its founders is Dr. Kat Lindley, and she joins us now. Doctor, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What did you guys hope to accomplish with this advertisement? There's multiple versions of the ad. There's an 8-minute version. There's shorter versions. Getting all of these physicians and experts together to say, hey, we're questioning all of these things about COVID. We're questioning what we were told. What did you hope to accomplish by putting this out?
The main goal is to show that even doctors at the beginning of the pandemic, they went with the story, they went with the narrative, they went with the system. As the story unfolded, they started questioning things. We want people to realize that it's okay to question, it's okay to try to do what's best for them and not just follow what they tell us to do. I would say that, we've all seen CDC going one way, then turning it. Rochelle Walensky with her statements, it's safe, it's effective, all of those things. And I think the most important thing is for all of us to question things, not to just buy into the narrative and to do what's best for our families.
You're specifically referring to when CDC Director Walensky testified in Congress, I think it was last April, and we were all like shocked. I mean, our mouths were wide open because she said that mRNA injections marketed as COVID-19 vaccines do not stop the spread of the virus. But of course, that contradicted all of the claims during the pandemic that was urging people to get the vaccines because doing so would reduce the transmission of the virus. And here she is testifying, admitting, no, that's not what they were doing. That's not what they were doing at all. It was an unbelievable moment.
It was, for me, the moment that I knew that we can really trust what's happening was actually the masks. It was very early on when they said you have to wear the pretty much the spacesuit, the whole gear, and then they ran out of it. It was an N95 mask, then they went to surgical mask. But when CDC said that you have to wear a bandana, that's kind of new when the narrative is falling apart. Because for anyone who spent any time in the hospital, we know exactly how you need to protect yourself against any kind of infectious agents. And when it comes to viruses, these molecules are very, very small. So when they started saying bandana, that's when I knew early on that, whatever comes out of their mouth is not something I would trust. I would have to question it.
Yeah, put a bandana around your face or a T-shirt if you don't have an N95 mask, and that'll stop it. It was ridiculous. So then these doctors started questioning this. They started saying, wait, and they started raising the alarm bells to politicians. They started sounding the alarm. There was a number of doctors, of course, who had long-term alternative treatments which had won the Nobel Prize, which had been existent for many, many years, and they were finding great success with that. Dr. Peter McCullough, friend of the show. And then these doctors started raising the alarm bells, and they were silenced. And they were kept quiet. and many of them lost their jobs. They were ostracized. They were banned from social media. Is that part of this agenda to make sure that that never happens again?
It is. We all know that COVID-19 was just a play, right? It was just a rehearsal. We're getting these messages from WHO, from everywhere. There is a new disease that's going to come out. You need to be ready. Silencing physicians, scientists, moms, dads, researchers who are questioning things is never good. The only way we move forward is if you actually have a conversation and find the best way forward. It is very important for all of us to realize that CDC, FDA, NIH, all of these agencies, I would say for the past 3 years, they had their own agenda. And now it's time to have this conversation and say, what do we do forward? What do we do when this happens again? Do we just blindly follow it? And do we go with it, or do we try to figure out what's best for all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned the WHO, the World Health Organization. It's something we've been following very closely here on this show, the Pandemic Treaty. The largest funder of the WHO, of course, is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. 88% of the funding for the WHO from the philanthropic side comes from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've been telling us very publicly that the next pandemic is coming. And Bill Gates specifically has said that it will target children. It's almost as if they know something. You mentioned that this was a play, a rehearsal. COVID was just a play and a rehearsal. And now, as this pandemic treaty moves further and further along, and it appears the United States is going to turn over its sovereignty to the World Health Organization, what can these doctors do? What can the Global Health Alliance, the Global Health Project do to try to raise awareness about this and stop this? What are you guys doing right now?
So the biggest problem with the IHR amendments and the pandemic treaty, or Accord, or Zero Draft, as they keep on changing the names, is that if another emergency happens, Director General will have the power to decide how countries respond to these emergencies. So if you look at the IHR amendments, that has to do specifically with vaccine passports, vaccines that we would use, medications, exams, possible border closures, and things like that. That has all already played out. We've seen that. In this COVID-19 pandemic, WHO, those used to be recommendations. Now, if this is passed, they're going to become mandates and obligatory things that every country has to follow. What doctors have to do is, first of all, we have to work at restoring the trust that has been lost during these 3 years. Because if you ask someone on the street, you're going to get mixed bag of answers, but a lot of them will say, I'm not sure that I trust my doctors anymore. So the first thing we have to do is restore the trust. We have to remember who our employer is. Our employer is our patient. It's not a corporation. It's not a hospital. It's not this big system. It's not WHO. We need to remember who our employer is. That's the patient. We need to advocate for our patient and on an individual basis decide what's best for our patient. I come from communist country. I don't know if you really know much of my background from Yugoslavia. I know what not having freedom is. And mandates that we had these past 3 years, and now that they're starting to pass, that's not something that any country should allow. That's not something that any physician should go with. Having vaccine mandates, one size fits all, is not the way we were taught medicine. So what we're hoping to do as the Global Health Project is remind physicians that it's okay to question what's happening and to remind them that they took an oath to do no harm. They took an oath to protect our patients. They took an oath to be a voice to our patients. And for the public, what I'm hoping is that they will use these videos and share them, show them to their doctor and say, what did you think when this happened? What would you do now? And will you do what's best for me?
That's powerful. Of course, one of the big problems has been these boards and these hospitals who've fired many of these doctors under pressure. Again, I bring up Dr. Peter McCullough and others just as an example. The ostracization of these medical professionals. So it's one thing for the doctors to stand firm and say, I'm going to do what's best for the patient. But when they have this enormous pressure from the hospital boards or the university boards that are pushing them in some sort of direction, how do you stand up to them?
One of the biggest problems in United States is that we went from being independent physicians to working for big systems. We started practicing what I call corporate practice of medicine. You have a big hospital, big system who tells you what to do. If you don't comply, you're going to lose your job. If you don't get the vaccine yourself, you're going to lose the job. So a lot of people went with this narrative. There comes time in your life when you have to decide, am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? And I agree with you. The regulatory bodies are a huge deal. Medical boards are a huge deal. But the way you do that, you have to just fight back. Your patients will stand with you. When there are issues, they will call the medical board. They will send letters. This medical board, they're appointed by the governors of the state. So I think, it's not going to be easy. It's never easy to do what we're all trying to do, but we have to think, what is the future we want to have? Censorship, again, going back to WHO, there's a huge push for this misinformation, disinformation, as I call the Ministry of Truth. It has to end. We have to expose it. Every day you have to just share a story. Go on Twitter, go on your social media, talk to the barber in the shop, talk to your taxi driver and tell them what's going on. Because you'll find that most people think like you.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right about that. And we're seeing this movement, as we talked about in tonight's show, about throughout Europe, which is this pushback against politicians that have been supporting this globalist agenda, NATO agenda, and lockdown agenda. And so you're seeing this groundswell, I think, and you're seeing it across the United States as well in a lot of different states. So it's my hope that if we get that change at the gubernatorial level, at the governor's level, that we can influence some of these hospitals to allow physicians to do what they do best, to advise and to be able to help their patients. We wish you luck with this campaign, and I would encourage all of you watching right now, share this video. Share this video out on social media. Share our interview here with Dr. Kat Lindley and the clip that we showed you at the beginning. Share that as well, and then share the actual ads that the Global Health Project is putting out as well to try to really drive awareness about this and how these physicians were silenced and lost their jobs in many cases. Dr. Lindley, we appreciate you joining us. Good luck with this project, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.